we are welcoming DuPage Wildlife Conservation Center. We have Annie Hemanowski.
Yeah.
Okay, and Catherine Downs. So please give them your attention. And it looks like we've got some fun interactive stuff going on today. So that's awesome. Thank you, ladies.
All right, so thank you guys. Good morning, everyone. We are so excited to be here, mainly because we just know that pre-COVID, the communication between DWCC, although let's be honest, we're all going to call it Willowbrook, but DWCC was really strong. And then things just changed as they had to with COVID and the pandemic. And so we really are excited to continue to strengthen those lines of communication. Because as we discuss, we are obviously the hospital side of it, but we don't do the transportation. And so what we're hoping to do, and you might have gotten calls or emails from me already, is strengthen the communication between us and the municipalities. So that way, when members of the public call, we're not misdirecting them to your departments or your townships if that's not a service that you guys provide, or that we can when appropriate. So thank you guys so much. Again, my name is Annie. And what you'll see here is you'll see a picture of the new building, which we are just hopefully days away from moving into. What we've tried to do is just put our hours of operation, because that's changed somewhat, which is just that Thursday through Tuesday we are open 9 to 4, and that includes our phone lines, but that we do have a shorter day on Wednesday. And so I feel like we've heard it today time and time again with Amy, with IDNR, is that we are here to answer any of your questions. So please feel free to utilize that call center. Just a reminder again that last year we treated just shy of 11,500 patients. And it's because of that, we don't have the resources to do that transportation side, and that's where we look to you guys when applicable. The other thing is we've only been open for the admission side of it, but we are going to be opening hopefully in the next few months to the public side of it. The animal side of it, the admission side, will be opening shortly, and we'll transition from that brick building that you guys are so familiar with to the new building. But the public side will be opening in a little bit later down the road. But what we hope to do is, again, just have that so that hopefully we can take some of the heavy lifting off of your shoulders when it helps to educating the public. It was mentioned already, but we are only permitted and only take native wildlife. So there are some changes because of the fact, and we referenced, if you see the top left, those non-native birds, the starlings, the house sparrow, and the pigeon. And again, to note, that's the English house sparrow. There are plenty of other migratory sparrows that we do take. It's just specifically the house sparrow that we don't. And because permits are not required to treat those birds, there are plenty of resources that we can provide for individuals and facilities that do treat those birds. So if you get a call about that, it's not kind of a end of the road. We can definitely help with that. Another point to notice is that just a decision that was made of the board above us, is that as of about a year ago, we no longer treat rehabilitate raccoons. Now, if it is a situation where that raccoon would benefit from humane euthanasia, definitely, please feel free to bring it in. Again, we just highlight some of our numbers here. And then just to kind of help you guys to understand the types of cases that we're getting, we notice here that comment that of the patients that we get, about 65% are avian. And of those avian patients, only 13% of them are orphaned. And then same for mammals, only about 32% of them are orphaned. So kind of like we've heard time and time again, we want to keep those orphan young, or not orphan, those young with their parents. So again, if we can help you guys, or if you want to direct the public to us on how to do that, we would love to do that, because we would love to focus just on injured and diseased wildlife and orphan when appropriate. Again, just some fun facts. Largest patient we took last year was a coyote. Smallest was the ruby-throated hummingbird. And I also wanted to take a moment just to highlight, you'll see under the busiest intake day, just that laundry bag of brown paper bags. A service or a rescue group that we really love to utilize is CBCM. If you guys aren't familiar with them, that's the Chicago Bird Collision Monitors. Now, they are volunteer-based, so what we always tell the public, if they are not comfortable rescuing the bird, is to call them. Their phone dispatch service is a little bit smaller. Usually it's just 1 or 2 individuals, so the public may need to leave a message, but the call will be put out there. And then it's just based on the availability of the volunteers. But this is a bird rescue group that really works tirelessly, probably more than they should, to be available 24/7 to help these birds. So if that's not a service, go ahead.
Real quick, with turkeys, wild turkeys, I had a call the other day for outside someone's house, the guy was all concerned. Would they respond, the collision?
They would respond, again, based on availability. So these are volunteers. They're not required to answer any of these. So there may be someone who is in the area but just didn't feel comfortable. CBCM has volunteer sessions to hopefully get their volunteers more comfortable taking a wider variety of species. But that is something you could call them on. Yeah. And again, just a few construction updates. This was taken a few months ago. You know, our building is not quite as beautiful as this is, but it will be soon. And then if you guys are familiar with our facility, kind of in the middle here, the ED section, that's the current building that we're using, that brick building, and that will be turned over once we move into the new construction here, into new caging for avian patients. But if you'll notice here, just to, you know, just downhill from where the current building is, that's where the new animal admissions office is. And again, there's pretty big signage that will indicate where you come in. And then just a few fun photos. You know, this is what it will look like. You see it says Wildlife Hospital. That's where you'll come in. There is going to be a service drive if you need to pull up, but that is specific to municipalities and not the public. Again, we'll have the classroom. We'll be able to have indoor and outdoor education. Just a small change, again, just for public interest. We used to have just the wildlife trail where people would be able to come and see patients that had come in and that it, due to just, you know, injury restrictions, they were not being able to be released, but we were able to show them to the public. We did everything in our power, across the country to do education and animal enrichment, and we really thought our patients and our resident animals were truly happy. But then COVID happened, and once we removed the public, we actually saw those animals really thrived. And so that was what helped us to utilize or make that decision that we'll no longer be offering that wildlife trail. But what we will be doing in the new building is basically one-way glass. So now the public and yourselves will be able to see into the clinic, be able to see into surgery, exhibit nursery, things like that, but it will no longer be that exchange back and forth. Just a classroom. And the only other small thing I'll note on this before I hand it over to Kat is, you know, you'll notice when you come to our building that all of the windows utilize glass, the bird restriction film. And again, that's just a small thing that you can direct the public to if anyone calls. A lot of times we get calls about birds striking the window. So that's something that they can find on Amazon, or again, they can call us. Just some few carefully placed Post-it notes will even make a huge difference. All right.
All right. So, welcome. Thank you guys for being interested in rescuing wildlife. I like to start off with this slide because unfortunately that's the first step, is you get to see not so much the pretty side to wildlife rehabilitation. Our job is to make them look beautiful and get them healthy again, but just to prepare you, there are some things that you'll see that could, you know, catch your breath a little bit. So, the first thing you want to do when you're getting into rescue is to collect some supplies. So you'll want a first aid kit, which I assume a lot of you already have, some thick leather gloves and latex gloves, a mask. We do prefer N95s just because they are a little bit more durable than your surgery mask. Safety glasses, goggles, a transport box or carrier, a net, some towels, blankets, and pillowcases, and a knife and wire cutters, which I'll get into. So your first aid kit, we just recommend very standard Band-Aids, alcohol pads, antiseptic wipes, triple antibiotic ointment, aspirin, Tylenol, hand sanitizer. Wild animals are disgusting. Remember, it is only 99.9% effective. Wash your hands when you get back. Eye wash, just in case something gets in your eye, and a cold compress. Gloves. So there's a lot of different gloves you can get. Typically, I like to carry two different types. You've got these really thick ones for our more aggressive animals, I would say, with the harder bites. That would be like your coyotes, your raccoons, foxes, stuff like that. Maybe even squirrels, believe me, they can get you. These other gloves, I like to be precautionate even if I'm handling like a cottontail or something, just to be on the safe side. Latex gloves. The reason I put latex gloves on there is because you never want to handle an animal with just your plain hands. Even if it's a baby animal that's defenseless, you have to keep in mind that, number one, it can transmit diseases to you, but you can also transmit diseases to that baby. And so I always recommend, please, at the very least, have some latex gloves on hand. Safety glasses and goggles, as my cute little stuffed animals are showing you right now, if you can see. So safety glasses, they work great. If you have glasses, you can get some goggles that'll go right over your glasses. Those are really good if in case something sprays back at you. Just always protect your eyesight, especially for certain birds that will go after purposely for your eyes. Transportation, you have a lot of different options. The way that I like to see transportation used is based on the size of the animal. You have to keep in mind that the animal thinks you're a very scary predator. It's going to think that you're going to try to eat it at all times that you have it in your hands. And so when you have it in too big of an enclosure, if you're transporting it and you have to make a sudden stop for any reason, that animal is going to slam into the back of whatever it's transporting in. So I like to keep something like a breeder box, like you can see at the top right corner for our smaller like birds or reptiles, things like that. Sometimes I'll use cardboard boxes, which are really nice because you have different sizes you can use. Just keep in mind for chewers, if you put a chipmunk or a squirrel in there, it might end up in your car instead of the box. Our airline pet carriers, that's our most common one that we like to use because it's durable, it's reusable, you can clean it out really well. And then I'll even do some totes. Just make sure you put holes in there for ventilation. It's very common that people tend to forget, but ventilation is very important. Your nets. So we have two different types of nets here. For your smaller songbirds or smaller animals, because believe it or not, those little songbirds can get away from you, you kind of want something a little bit thicker, a little more sturdy material. Now, if you go to try to capture a raptor with this, I'm going to let you know those talons are going to get right into that net and they're going to rip it. And so in that case, what I would recommend is something that Annie's holding here, which tends to have little holes in there that they might get a little stuck into, and still they could have the potential to rip it, but it's still something a little bit more durable that will last you a little bit longer. So then we have towels and blankets and pillowcases. The reason I put pillowcases is because a lot of little tiny songbirds, sometimes they can get stuck in certain materials, so that's something to keep aware of. So pillowcases, reusable, you can use those for those little guys. Towels are very common because, everybody uses towels. And then the thick blankets that I like to use, the reason you want to kind of have a thick blanket on hand is if you go to pick up a fox or a coyote. That jaw strength is very, very strong, and so you do want to have that added protection on top of your gloves just in case. Going back to the gloves, animals can sometimes bite through these, so you don't want to just rely on your gloves 100% of the time. You do want to, we'll get to that too, on proper handling. Knife cutters, you might be like, why do I need that? A lot of times animals will end up trapped in things like soccer nets, basketball nets, all kinds of nets. So we do recommend keeping knife cutters, wire cutters, what have you. The only thing we ask with this is if you go out to rescue an animal that's trapped in a net, please cut the animal away from the net and bring it as is to us. We've had a lot of times where people try to cut the net away from the legs, and unfortunately they tend to make it a little bit worse. We have a little bit of an advantage because we have veterinarians on staff that can sedate that animal. That makes it a lot easier and can reduce the destruction that they caused. So now you want to be prepared, right? You got your supplies. So just to go over some things, reiterate, a lot of it has already been talked about today, but zoonotic disease, diseases that animals can pass to you and you can pass to them, right? They're pretty disgusting. They carry parasites. You've got biohazards such as urine, defecation, scratches and bites. You want to be mindful of that at all times. Never trust any of them. Animal handling and restraint hazards. Heavy lifting, for instance. You want to make sure you're always lifting with your legs. I know a few people that have hurt their backs just picking up a goose. Eye hazards, again, if you're dealing with skunks, if something happens, gets into your eye. And dermatological conditions, allergens, mange, which can be transmitted to people. It's, so that's something to keep in mind as well. Again, we've talked a lot about rabies, so I won't stay on this too long, but just so you're aware, our 2 rabies vectors in Illinois are the skunks and the bats. And a lot of bats, I think the last I heard was 4% of bats actually carry rabies. I could be a little off, but that's our main rabies vector in Illinois. And so you just want to take that precaution as best as you can. That being said, all mammals have the potential to carry and transmit rabies. So treat every mammal like it might carry it. Signs and symptoms: fearfulness, aggression, staggering, difficulty swallowing, paralysis, drooling, seizures, excessive drooling. So those things you want to keep an eye out. They tend to mimic also in raccoons. A lot of people call us and say, this raccoon has rabies. It tends to be a little bit like distemper, but just in case, treat it like it's rabies. Better safe than sorry. And remember that, it can be transmitted through the bites and saliva, so, do not forget your PPE. So another one that's really popular right now is HPAI. That's highly pathogenic avian influenza. So signs and symptoms of that: respiratory distress, neurological signs, swelling, discoloration, nasal discharge, lethargy, and diarrhea. So the bird flu that's going around right now, it is still in the area. Hopefully with the warmer weather, we'll see a decrease. I'm keeping my fingers crossed. But we do recommend full PPE when you're going out for any animals that are displaying for this sign, especially our waterfowl and our raptors. So even if you have a full body gown that you can wear, that's amazing. I would recommend that as well. Your goggles, your face mask, your latex gloves, and your regular gloves, which you can spray with Rescue as well when you're done. Keep in mind for animal defenses, they will try to fight you because they think, again, that you're trying to eat them. So we've got beaks, teeth, nails, talons, claws, wings, vomit, and defecation. I'm looking at that turkey vulture right there. He's also got a little thing on the end of his beak that'll get you too, so you got to keep an eye out for that too. But our snappers, they can, potentially bite the tip of your finger off, so that's something you got to keep an eye out for. Possums pretty much play dead, but they can get a little active too. And I always put baby coyotes on there, or foxes, because believe it or not, they have those little tiny teeth, and sometimes those get to you a little bit more than those other guys that you deal with. Geese are another one. Believe it or not, those wings are so strong, all it takes is like one little wing slap and it can actually break your nose. So that's another thing to keep in mind. And they are very protective of their babies. So if you're trying to rescue a baby goose, you might want to have a friend distracting those adults away. But yeah. All right, so capture, right? This is why you guys are all here. When you first get on the scene, you want to remain composed. Obviously, they're going to feed off of your stress too, as well as the person that you're probably rescuing the animal that called in. You want to assess the animal, see how what's going on, make sure it actually needs help, which we'll get into a little bit too. You're going to look for hazards, not only hazards for the animal, but also hazards for you. You want to look for things like when you go to trap that or catch that animal for like tree stumps, things that might trip you up, water sources, things like that. Look for escape routes. Is there a tree nearby that the animal might climb onto? Is there a waterway that a goose might jump into? So you want to plan all that out. So have your supplies ready. I always take, if I'm going out and I'm going to use a net, I try to look at the animal first to see what kind of tactic I want to use. So say I want to use a net and my carrier and a towel, I'm going to bring those things out with me right away. Every situation is unique, so remember that, and be prepared to adapt. You might see that cute little squirrel that's really tired and laying there, but the second you go to approach it, it's going to run up that tree. So I like to kind of block my body for any kind of escape routes they might use. So I will put myself in front of that tree to keep it from going up there. Rabbits, like cottontails, same thing. They might seem kind of disoriented, but the second you go to pick them up, they might freak out a bit and jump around, and they can also hurt their back more. Then you've got, of course, your longed beak beautiful animals or herons that will go after your eyes. So that's something to be very wary of. Always, always please wear your safety glasses and goggles because they will purposely try to take your eyes out. And, and remarkably, they are pretty fast. I've had to run on land after them quite a bit, and they will make a really sad cry when you catch them. So be prepared for that. Oh, sorry, question.
What's the best way to catch a heron? Just put a blanket over it?
Yeah, so I've used different tactics. If I'll go and kind of investigate the animal, if it's really out of it, I'll just do a towel. I'll wear my glasses, and I always cover the head because it disorients them and calms them down. But at the same time, I bring a net too, because I've had one where I've seen where it's like disoriented, and then I'm running like a block, and I'm like, come here, you know? And then I'll catch that guy, and I'm like, you need help, come on. I know you can run, but you can't fly, so let's fix you. And never let your guard down. I've had so many raccoons where they're going into seizures because they have distemper, and you think, okay, this is the perfect time to grab it, and usually it is, but they can come out of that seizure and then they'll try to bite you. So just never let your guard down. Always be aware of where that head is and talons if they have it, claws, things like that. So capture techniques, I like to use the net method, which I'll kind of give a little demonstration. Annie is gonna help me. The towel method and our box method, which you actually kind of saw with that bat. That's pretty much the box method. For geese, a lot of times I like to use a towel where I just go over their head and just control those wings, because like I said, I don't want a broken nose. Our little tiny birds, they might seem like they're not flying, but they can fly just enough that it can be kind of annoying, so I'll bring a net out with me. Cottontails, that's a good one to use the box method. Like I said, those little backs, you gotta protect them. And then of course your possums, that's another one. It's like box net, you gotta see how the possum's doing that day. They can mislead you. Another thing I want to point out is, does the animal actually need help? So if it's healthy enough to avoid predators, that's a big one. A lot of times you'll get calls to go out and rescue an animal, and there's no way you're going to catch that animal. And the fact that it's able to just like get away and it has a minor limp, like deer we mentioned, coyotes, that's a big one. If somebody can approach that deer or coyote and it gets up and it's able to run away, which I want to say 95% of the time it does, I would tell the finder, keep an eye on it. If it gets to the point where it's lethargic, then let's go out and try to catch it. But a minor limp like that, not the worst thing in the world. Sometimes they can even heal on their own. And there's other than, taking it out, there's not much you can do. Now, if the bone or something is sticking out, that's a whole completely different story. So then you might need the assistance of a licensed trapper. And that's typically if you see bones sticking out, blood, if there's something stuck on an animal, I would recommend reaching out to your licensed trapper, which, like they mentioned, the DNR has a list of Class A licensed trappers that can help you out, for mammals at least. Birds is Class D, I believe. If it's a healthy orphan and reuniting hasn't been attempted, this is a big one too. We like to keep babies with their moms. We try our best, but we are not mom. So their best chance of survival is with mom. And so if there's a healthy orphan and there's no sign of fleas or parasites, it's not injured whatsoever, we want to direct you on how you can best reunite that baby, whether it be squirrels during the day or raccoons overnight. Give us a call. We even offer some re-nesting boxes that we can lend out to you or the finder. And then also, when to stop. Maybe that animal really does need help, and then you're running into something called capture myopathy, which is an often fatal result of muscle damage caused from extreme exertion, struggle, or stress. It occurs with prolonged or short intense pursuit, capture, restraint, or transportation of wild animals. You want to immediately stop capture when warning signs arise. Clinical signs are elevated respiration, heart rate, body temperature. Other signs, depression, weakness, uncoordinated, lack of response to stimuli, shock, paralysis, and death. Don't worry, that raccoon is just posing. But you don't want your raccoon to look like that. If you're going around chasing a raccoon, it's going up and down a tree, it starts panting really bad and it starts laying down, getting to the point laying down on a tree, just leave it be, come back the next day, or hire a trapper. It's not you're there to save the animal or rescue the animal or bring it in for humane euthanasia. It's not humane to continue to chase it to the point of death. Same thing with that squirrel that's panting right there. Now, if the animal does get to the point where it's like completely down and out, it's an emergency at that point. Then you do need to get that into the carrier and get it to us as soon as possible. But hopefully, from reading the slide, you guys won't let it get that far. So our practice time. So like they said with the box method, I always like to approach animals from the back. And so maybe we'll take his mask off. Oh, sorry. Actually, I'll use our little friend opossum. So I hope most of you can see this. But say possum's here, I always orient myself so I can get in the back of that animal if possible. And I just kind of try to remain quiet because, you know, obviously if it hears me, it's going to freak out. And then basically, boop, put the box over it. Hopefully it's an appropriate size box and its tail fits under there. And then same thing like they showed in the video. You want a little stiff piece of cardboard or plexiglass, what have you, and then just try to like kind of get that underneath the box. It's a little harder on a table. And then the animal will eventually pick up its feet and get into the box. And then, of course, you want to slowly turn the box. You don't want to just turn it really fast because you're just going to hurt that animal more, right? Maybe have some pre-made holes in the box ahead of time and then just securely fasten that box as well. Put something heavy on there to keep it contained. So also, going back to our possum friend, a lot of people think that it's okay to pick them up by their tails. This isn't appropriate. So whenever you are handling a possum, say you're using like a towel or something, sorry, the brown towel, thank you. You want to take that towel, you know, you've got your PPE on, right? Don't forget your PPE. That's the most important. Cover it with the towel. And then you can actually use your hand to stabilize the base of the tail and then scoop your other hand underneath it. And you can pick it up and put it in a carrier that way. Please, you will hurt its tail if you carry it like this. Do not do that. Little babies, they can do that for a short time, but don't, it's not nice. And then we've got our net method, which is pretty much what it is. It's the net method. And so say you've got like, I like to use this with raptors a lot of times because they do have these really strong talons, sharp and strong, just as a reminder, they're very scary, so. We handle them when we hold a raptor. We always put like a finger between and we hold them very securely. I don't expect any of you guys to do this because this is years of training. But if you have one that's just out on the ground like that, what I'll do is I'll come out with my net, my PPE, and my gear. And then what I'll kind of do is put the carrier right in front of that animal because, again, it's probably going to be very out of it if it needs help, right? And then I'll kind of cover it with the net, and then I'll kind of get it shifted to go into the carrier, which we're going to pretend he's alive and he went in. And then what you do is you hold your net covering that space, gently close the door, and pull your net away. And then, of course, the next thing you want to do is cover that carrier with a towel, just to keep it kind of calm for transport. And then lastly, just the towel method again, just going up to that animal just going up to that animal with a towel, you have your PPE on, and just covering its head. If it's winged, holding those wings, being mindful of where the talons are, if you feel comfortable holding those talons like I showed you, but otherwise holding them like this, and having that carrier as close as possible and putting them in the carrier. They will reorient themselves with the towel on. That's perfectly fine. And actually, I recommend keeping a towel in there so that sometimes they can use that to stabilize themselves because otherwise the carrier can be slippery. So we'll pretend he's in there. He's sleeping now. Oh, actually, I need the towel. And then one other thing is our snapping turtles. So a lot of people are like, well, how do you do snapping turtles? And I'm like, well, let me show you a fun little trick. Oh, I don't want to get all tangled. So if you have a snapping turtle that's just trying to cross the street, you can do this as well. Otherwise, if you're trying to catch them, they can be really heavy, and a lot of people do not feel comfortable. We always grab them from the back of their shell, so very securely, as so. Never lift them more than a foot. I'm just kind of lifting to show you guys because you need to see it. But you want to kind of lift it only a foot, get it on top of the towel, and what you can do is you can actually drag the towel with the shell to where you need to go. And the turtle will be like, what's happening? But the same thing, you could drag it and then put it into your carrier. So just a little couple tips and tricks, and we do have some videos we can send you guys as well. So then response, basically what helps us after you get the animal and you bring it to us is if you can give us not only your name but the finder's name as well in case we need to contact them. Just ask them if they feel comfortable because that would be amazing. We try to get a lot of the animals back to the area they were at, so that helps. Address and cross street, phone number. Also, in some details like was the injury observed, like what happened, how did the animal fall, that can kind of get us, our vets, an idea of like what kind of injury we're looking at. Was the animal given anything, food and water? This is important to ask, but also if they ask you, should I give it something, please say no. We recommend that animals, even if it's a baby, it's better to wait an hour or so, whatever it takes to get to us, just because of how hard it is to, or how easy it is to aspirate the little babies. And also we've had cases where sometimes people will give like cow's milk to cottontail babies, which they're not cows, they have a different diet. Or I've heard, people's breast milk, so just tell them, please, no milk. I know it's their best intention, but we want to make sure that we're giving it the appropriate stuff, so we'll wait till they come to us. Transportation, so you've got it in your transport box. So you want to make sure it's in a secure location, so it's not bopping around, and it's the appropriate size, of course. You want to make sure you're covering that animal to keep it safe. If you can, provide a heat source for that animal, like a warm water bottle or a snuggle safe, if there's, for our orphan babies, or even a rice sock if the finder is like it's their house. You can just ask them if they have anything, especially for our ectotherms too, that can help out too to get them warmer. Turn off music. Unlike our cats and dogs, wildlife are terrified. They don't know, they haven't heard of Britney Spears or any of, whatever music is out these days. So please turn off music, keep talking to a minimum. And then of course pay attention to the weather. Even if it's 70 degrees, keep that animal out of the car until you're ready to drive, or put your AC on for that animal for the greenhouse effect that could happen. And then drive safe. If something happens to you, we're not gonna get that animal, so just remain composed the entire time, which I think I'm dealing with a lot of professionals in here that know how to do that, so. Drop off, this is our animal admission form. If you can, call ahead, let us know so we can prepare for you. Then we just ask that you fill out the admission form when you get here, which is those prior questions. And then just relay any information you have on the animal to us that helps. Again, our facility location and hours, which Annie kind of went over with you, but just in case you need to see them again. And then just a reminder again, what's not accepted for rehabilitation, but you can always call us because a lot of these like skunks and bats we do take for euthanasia, or we can check to see like is something really wrong with it. If not, then we can release it on site. But for the most part, we want to make sure that we don't want an animal suffering. So a lot of these animals we can euthanize if they're suffering. So yeah, especially healthy nuisance trapped animals, that's another thing too. And then just to go over raccoons again, the reasons why we're not taking raccoons is just because they're overly abundant right now. They're also a top predator of endangered species the Forest Preserve is actively managing, like our Blanding's turtle. They're actually a popular predator for their eggs. So that's one of the reasons we stopped rehabilitating, but also because it takes resources away from other animals that we can now rehabilitate. But healthy orphans, like I said, we can let you get a renesting box or let the finder borrow a renesting box because a lot of times we can reunite those with mom. We can also find another rehabilitator, so give us a call, let us know. If it's sick, obviously, again, we will take it in for euthanasia so that it stops the spread of disease and also ends that animal's suffering. And just to go over our euthanasia statement, which we do get a lot of, sometimes people are upset, like, oh, you're just gonna kill the animal. We are not in this because we wanna kill animals, believe it or not. We are in this because we wanna save and help them. But unfortunately, some animals, if it is in their best interest, we will euthanize an animal, and it is only when it is in that animal's best interest. Any questions? Lots of questions.
Your example of the stamper.
Yeah.
Is it pretty safe to approach them from behind like you were showing?
Yeah, I try to wear PPE. I would especially, because they can turn and bite, but typically they can't usually get you if you're all the way back here. But you do want to be mindful, like, hey, they're gonna try and stuff, but it kind of catches them off guard too. If you're like over here in their front, like they're definitely gonna get you. And again, not going more than like a foot off the ground. And we have a really good video too. We're gonna try to figure out how to send you guys that'll go over that too. Any other questions? Yep.
You have no weekend hours, correct? So what do you suggest if, let's say, somebody needs an animal to get to you guys on a Friday evening? I know you guys aren't back until Tuesday?
Oh, so evening hours. So
No, we're 7 days a week.
yeah.
So if it's in the evening, sure, you're correct, that our admissions closes at 4. So basically what we would suggest in that is what Kat's already mentioned. We don't want to feed, we don't want to offer any sort of water, maybe a shallow dish is appropriate, but we wouldn't want that animal to drown, because of lethargy. And it can just keep it in a dark, quiet spot. Kat mentioned a few times about putting a towel over a carrier. Honestly, dark and quiet is an injured animal's best friend. It's going to really reduce that stress. And so there's no need for that individual to check on the animal. If in the event the animal passes overnight, their checking is not going to make a big difference. So we always suggest take that animal into your home, put it in a weather appropriate spot. We wouldn't obviously want to put it in the garage if we have extreme temperatures. And then they can just keep that overnight and then bring it in 9 o'clock the next morning.
We had an online question submitted wanting to know if there are any tests you recommend to see if babies have in fact been orphaned, if there's a way to tell if mom is coming back when people aren't around.
That's an excellent question. So what I look for are parasites typically, like fleas, like if there's a lot of flies. There's something that they get called fly strike, which is these little white eggs that they can get on them. Typically that means mom is not grooming them, and so that means mom's probably not in the picture. Other things you can do is like a cat or a dog, like the pinch test on their skin to see if they're dehydrated or not. Bunnies, there's a way to see if they're dehydrated with their bellies. But I always tell finders, I remind them with cottontails, mom will only come in the very early morning and the very late evening. So she's not going to be there because she's a high prey species animal and she's going to try to keep predators away from her babies. She only has to feed them twice a day and she's done. So,
to add on to that, yeah, mom is going to keep an eye on those young. So what we usually recommend is if they have any sort of milk crate, you could use a laundry basket, and this is traditionally when dogs or pets are in the area or even young kids. Wheelbarrows are heavy enough that even if you do have the dog, that's going to give some access for mom, but it won't let the dog or the children come in. Mm-hmm. And then really all you need to do, I like to say dusk and dawn, or we could say breakfast and dinner time, is remove that for about 45 minutes. Again, mom's in the area. She'll come, she'll offer that colostrum that's necessary for them and helps their development, and then she'll go back out and you can cover up that nest. In addition, so we're checking the actual orphan and we're doing some of those tests that Kat talked about. But in addition, we can even just do that crosshatch method, which is simply putting string over in a tic-tac-toe pattern over the nest, just to make sure that mom is coming. She'll disrupt that. One other comment I'll say is sometimes we hear that, okay, mom did not do a great job with this nest. It's in my planter, it's very shallow, what should we do? And this is true of any sort of mother. She's going to continue to work on that nest. So if a public calls and they have concerns about the quality of that nest, they don't need to worry. As that young gets older, mom will make that nest deeper. She'll add different materials to it, so they don't need to worry.
I personally, I don't like flipping them at all because turtles can actually suffocate if they're flipped for too long. But what I would do, so the towel really helps with those really heavy guys because you're kind of able to grasp onto them like on that corner, and then the towel makes it just so much easier to drag them because it makes it a lot lighter. So that's what I kind of do with the snappers. And we have that video that we're going to send for the snappers. It's going to be great. So.
You've got a plastic carrier that you're carrying, like a mangy dog or fox or whatever. What do you use to disinfect it? What's a good disinfectant?
Yeah, we use Rescue for a lot of our stuff, but you could do for your carrier yourself. You know, if you had like bleach, but then let it sit out for a while so that it gets out. But like, you know, there's also these. I can't think of the name of the spray right now, but there's something that like you can get for like if you get like fleas in your house and stuff too. I'm pretty sure you can get like something like that for the mange too if you wanted to spray your carrier. But if you wanted to also order some Rescue, I think you can just get it online too.
Yeah, that is veterinary grade. What we found on Amazon is that it is hard to obtain the spray, which is helpful, but you can get the wipes without issue.
Oh.
Yeah, just kind of like you would see like a Clorox wipe or something. It's just a container and it pulls out.
And just make sure you wash your hands.
Yeah.
So I know you mentioned when it comes to the nest, they don't have to worry about necessarily how it was made, but let's say it was made in a place that is in the way for, like, let's say it's on one of their things or somewhere. What do we do in that situation? Are we able to, like?
But for cottontails?
Yeah, or, yeah.
So unfortunately with cottontails, even if you move them like a couple feet, mom, she's like, I'm just gonna make some more babies and go somewhere else. So we recommend not telling people, please don't move the nest. Just as a reminder, they will leave the nest in 2 to 3 weeks tops. When they find them, usually they've already been there a few days. So we do recommend trying to cover that nest and just working with them. They are protected too. They're under the wildlife code, so.
And as a comment, we saw reference to fawns earlier and they're left alone, mom's abandoning them. One of the things I love about nature is how it takes care of itself. So when we're talking about baby fawns, we're talking about baby cottontails, there's no, they don't emit any sort of odor or smell, and that's just gonna protect them. So this idea of, I found the nest, my dog's gonna find it, not necessarily. This is not quite directly related, but just since we're talking about bleach and smell and things like that, we had talked earlier about nuisance animals, and when it comes to the fall or things like that, when we've really exited baby season, that's where, when it comes to nuisance animals, we can introduce some of these smell elements, the ammonia, the bleach, things like that. But when we're in this peak baby season, we'd ask that that's not part of what's suggested when it comes to nuisance animals because that can affect their young systems.
Do you still have the restriction for waterfowl because of bird flu?
Right now we are taking them in. Right? Or no? Okay.
No, and
it's
unfortunately,
changing all the time. I can't keep up with it.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I mean, the truth, to be completely transparent, that can literally change. Yeah, we had a day this week where it did seem like we were ready to lift those restrictions, but based on some outside sources, we were asked to keep those in place. So, you know, I'm a wildlife associate. What I do is I do the education part of it, the phone aspect, and the admit part of it. There's plenty of us. We would so much rather address these issues on the phone than have you guys come out and just use your time and such. So please feel free to call us about anything. Again, just a small comment. Kat made that comment about, feel free to call us if you're gonna bring in an animal. If it is a skunk, please just leave it outside. Then you can duck your head in, let us know that you're there, and we can take care of that outside in our breezeway opposed to bringing it in.
And going back to HPAI, we are taking, it's raptors we started taking, not the waterfowl.
Yeah.
So it is constantly changing, so give us a call because we're hoping with the warmer weather, maybe restrictions will hopefully lift, so we love our waterfowl.
And maybe this seems obvious, but just to say that unfortunately that even pertains to orphan waterfowl. We're really hoping that changes soon, but even if a case that clearly does not seem like it's high path, unfortunately, it has to be the all or nothing mentality right now.
Any other questions? I think we're done.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.